Hi, you guys. We are now on the next week, and we are going to be putting in. This is week 6. Sorry, I had to get out my notes. We're going to be putting together all that we learned about systems of equations, number substitution and elimination. This time, we're going to do a word problem. And what you're going to need to do is maybe take down the notes. And I would also have a calculator out because if you look at the first equation, we're going to need a calculator because it has decimals in it. We are going to, and you know me, I need to have that out just in case with decimals. Okay, first thing is you're going to look in here. Here are all the instructions on how you would do it. And what we're going to do is we're going to solve it. To solve it, we're going to first read the word problem. We always have to read the word problem. Okay? After we read the word problem, we need to write the 2 or more equations down. For us, we're only going to do 2 equations. We are not going to do anything more than 2. Then, once we wrote down the equations, we're going to choose, are we going to do substitution, which is when one of the letters is by itself, or are we going to just do elimination, which we learned last week? Last week when we had to multiply both equations. Then we're going to solve and find both variables. So now we're going to do 2 examples on this page and 1 more on the next. So the first one says, at an ice cream parlor, ice cream cones cost $1.10 and sundaes cost $2.35. So there's some information. We know that they're buying 2 things or 2 costs. One day, the total was 172 cones and sundaes were sold, and that they were $294.20. We want to find out how many were sold. So we know that in order to get the 172 cones and sundaes means they had to buy both of them, right? And 172 cones, it doesn't talk about price. So we do not need to have the price in this one. Okay, so we don't need to use the 110 and the 235. So our first one, we know they had to buy and before we even do that, we're going to say that X is our cones. Or you can use C for cones and S for sundaes. Doesn't really matter which one you choose, but we do want to write down what we're using because we want to know what X and Y is. So we're buying 172 cones and sundaes. We don't know what of each, but we know it's going to be 172 if we added them together. Now the next one, the receipt was for $294.20. So this time it's talking about money. So we do need to bring in our money version. And we know the cones cost $1.10. So we're going to go $1.10x plus how much our sundaes cost. And we know that we have to get $294.20. And remember, we always like to have a number in front of X and Y. It just makes it easier. So put a 1 if it doesn't have a number there. All right. So when we're dealing with decimals here, one has decimals, one doesn't. So what we're trying to do, there we go, laser point. We want either the X's to be the same or we want the Y's to be the same number, but we want one to be negative and one to be positive, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm probably just going to do my X's because it's in front, makes it easier. I'm going to take that 1, I'm going to put it down here. I'm going to take the 110 and I'm going to put it up here. Now I'm going to make one of them negative, and I'm just going to make that bottom one negative since that's easy to do. Now multiply $1.10 to everything up there. So $1.10 X plus $1.10 Y. And using your calculator, 172 times $1.10, we're going to get 189.2. Now we're going to go -1 times everything in the bottom equation. That just changed its sign. That's easy. -110x minus 235y equals -294.20. Pretty easy. And now we're going to add down. And we know that 110 minus 110 crosses off, so we can cross that off. And if you want to, use your calculators. 110 minus $2.35 will give me -$1.25 or 1.25y equals, and then doing the same thing with what ours is, so 189.2 minus 294.2 gives me -$105. My computer moved, sorry, 105, and we're going to divide. Divide them by y, and then that gets the y by itself, okay? And then use your calculator, divide it by 1.25, and we get 84. So we know they sold 84 sundaes. So we know they sold 84 sundaes. But the question asked how many cones were sold. Okay, so now we need to go back to plug it into one of our equations and find out how many cones were sold. And you go back to put it into one of the equations, whichever one looks easiest. You remember, make it easier for you. And I'm going to plug it into the first equation because that one looks easier. I don't know how many cones were sold, but I do know 84 sundaes were sold. So instead of the y, put 84 equals 172. Subtract it. And use your calculator if you need to. Whoops. My calculator decided to go on the fritz. Okay, there we go. We know they sold 88 cones. And that's how you solve it. Now with word problems, we're not going to put our answer in a parentheses. I'm not going to do 88, 84. I am just going to write it in a sentence, or in putting what I did in those little circles. Okay? All right, next one. Okay, next one's very similar type. I'm going to want you guys to try it this time. I'll get you started though. Okay, so we purchased 8 gallons of paint and 3 brushes for $152.50. Next day, we go back to the store and we need more paint. So we need 6 more gallons of paint and 2 more brushes for $113. We want to know how much each gallon of paint is and each brush. So because paint is first in our sentence, we're just going to make X equal paint. You can also do it as P, whatever works for you. I know a lot of you get confused if we change it different letters. Just keep it easy for yourself, okay? And Y is going to be brushes. Okay. Now, the first sentence is going to be our first equation. So 8 gallons of paint plus 3 brushes gives us our total of $152.50. So I'm going to write that down. 8x plus 3y equals 152.50. Now read the next sentence, so right there, and I want you guys to write the next equation. Okay, and hopefully you got 6 gallons, so 6 gallons of paint, plus the 2 brushes is going to be $113.00. Okay, and since this is, it's a standard form, x plus y or x minus y, we want to do elimination or linear combinations, either one you want to use. So what we're going to do is, do we want to multiply by what our x's are, or do we want to multiply by what our y's are? For me, I would go with the easiest. Go with the 3 and 2. So much easier. Smaller numbers are easier to do, but if you have calculators, it's all right. So the 3 is on the top. I'm going to move it to the bottom. 2 is on the bottom, move it to the top. And since these are both positive, make one of them negative. Doesn't matter what they are. Okay, so now we're going to multiply it, and I want to see what happens when you do multiply it. So you try it. What do we get? And hopefully you guys got it. I'm putting mine down. I'm using my calculator. And you should be able to get the following answer. Once we get it, we're going to add down and solve. And now I want you to solve for x. So go ahead and do it. Then we're going to add down negative 16 plus 18. So 18 minus 16 is 2. The y's cross out. And we're going to get 305 negative plus 339. It's going to give us 34. Divide. So x is going to give us 17. So since we're talking about money, we're talking about the x. So gallons of paint. So paint was our x. So our paint costs $17 per gallon. And we're writing that down. So per gallon. Now we want to go back and solve it, and we want to find out how much each of the brushes are going to cost. Okay, so now that we've got what x equals, we want to go back and we're going to plug our 17 in for one of these equations. So one of these equations you want to choose, and instead of x, put in 17. For me, I think the 6 and 2 are a little smaller, might be easier. I'm going to do that. You plug it into whichever one you want, and I want you to solve it for y. Okay, go ahead and do that. And so I told you I was going to put it in the second one for me. Doesn't matter which one, you're going to get the same answer. So instead of x, I put in 17. So 6 times 17, it's 102 plus 2y equals 113. And because it's .00, I don't have to put .00. I'm just going to leave it out now. And now this is a two-step problem. We're going to add and subtract, and then multiply, divide. So 102 is positive, so I'm going to do the negative. Cross this out. And so we get 550, okay? And we can always go back and check if you want, but sometimes our answers are not going to be exactly perfect. So, and since we're talking about cost, y is the brushes. So the brushes cost $5.50 each. Okay, hopefully you guys were able to do this. This is just reviewing what we did last week. Nothing new from there. Okay, now the previous weeks, we did another version. So here we have another one. It's a little different, but if you were in the class, we would actually have this on a worksheet and you would put it in your spiral notebook. But maybe write it down and put what you want in your own. Okay, so Finest Cooks offers a membership to take, cooking class with an initial fee of $60. So you're paying the $60 to go, plus $20 for each lesson. Now that plus just means this. That's it. So we're talking about Finest Cooks. So Y equals, this one's a Y equals, since we're talking about initial fee plus something else, we're always going to use slope-intercept form. So this one is why it's a little bit different and it's on a different page. So you're going to pay the $60 plus you have to pay $20 for each lesson. Remember, every, per, these are where your X is going to go. So that's your hint word. That's where X is. Okay? That's for our first one, and I'm just going to put a little F so I know that's my Finest. Now, Professional Cooks offers a membership for initial fee of $15 plus $35 for each lesson. For each, that's your X. So we're going to get Y equals 15 plus 35X. All right. What we're going to do now, is we're going to graph both of them if you want to. So graph them, and we're going to see that graphing may not be as accurate as we want it to be. And then later, I'm just going to go down, we are going to do substitution or elimination. So we want to check our answers using that. So we're going to use both types. So easiest one to do with this, we could graph it, but if you notice our X and Y graph is not out. We can't really go 35 up and 1 to the right. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an X and Y table. Make it a little easier for us. Oh, and I want to put a P here for Professional Cooks. All right, so I'm going to do an X and Y table. So this is for our Finest. And this is for, and over here, just because I don't have very much room. Whoops, that was messy. Sorry, I don't like that one. Let's try that again. Let's see. Oh, that's so much better. And this is for Professional. Okay, so here's our X, Y, or F of X. We've done both of them. So we do want to start off at 0. And you know what? I'm going to skip some numbers, see what we do. So that way we don't have to do too many. 4, but I'm going to do 0, same thing, 2 and 4. And depending on where our things are going to go, where our points are going to go, we know this one is 0. So this is the number of lessons. And this is going to be our total cost. We know we have 0, 2, and this would be 1, but right here's 1, but I don't really want to put it in because then sometimes mine get messy when I have to write too many. But let's just write down those. Now, using your calculator, we're going to plug in 0 for X for this first one, okay? So if you need to see it, I'm going to go 60 plus 20, parentheses, whatever my X is. So that's where my X is going to go. So if I put in 0 for the first one, 60 plus 20 times 0, 20 times 0 is 0, I have to pay $60. Then I'm going to go to the next one. So 60 plus 20, so times 2, plus, I'm going to have to do 100. And then I'm going to do it 4. If I bought 4 classes plus the $60 registration, and I get 140. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the professional. I'm going to go 15 plus 35, and then whatever my x is. So this is my x. My first one I'm going to put in 0, and without even taking a class, I have to pay the $15. Okay, so I'm going to do it for 2 classes. So 15 plus 35 times 2. So 85. So just looking at our numbers, if I'm only going to take 2 classes, I would probably go with professional because it's cheaper if I'm going to do 2 classes. Now let's see if we do what happens if I do 4 classes. When I get to 4 classes, professional is more expensive. I have to pay $155, while finest is $140. So, and this is what you guys would be thinking about if you're going to be doing a gym membership. If you're going to go to more than one gym, or if you're going to do more than one class, are you going to go to more than one location? They have different ones that you could want to. I know with mine, Crunch, you have a basic, and then you have 2 other levels after that, depending on what you want to do. Do I want to go to Folsom and take classes over there? My sister does, so that's why she goes to a higher membership than me. But whatever fits yours, you have to figure out. So if we were doing less than 4 classes, I would do professional. If I was doing more than 4 classes, I would do finest. All right, and so what we want to do is we're going to figure out what our Y scale is over here. Let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm going to go by 20s here. So this would be 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140, 160, 180, and then that would be our 200. And I'm going to do 2 different colors. So, and I'll show you those. So orange, I'm going to do finest in orange. So finest at 0, I'm going to go up to 60. At 2, I'm at $100. And 4, I'm at 140. And then if I connect those dots, so much easier than doing it on the smartboard. So that's my finest. And then we're going to do our other one. Let's do purple. Adelante purple. Let's do professional. So at 0, going to be at 15. So a little bit right there. It's not a little bit above halfway. Okay, at 2, we're at $85. So this is 80, so a little bit above it. Not halfway, because that would be 90. At 4, it's 155. So 4, 140, 155 right here. And then you're going to connect the dots. Okay. Now, it sort of looks like we are meeting about right here. Right there. So that's where it looks like we're meeting. So for our solution, we want to put a number in there. Oh, there it goes. Up. Sorry, you guys. Don't know why it does that. There we go. Let's see. There we go. There we go. Okay. Okay. So we're going to think that maybe it's about $3 and maybe $120. So let's get in a different color. So I would think that our solution would be $3 and maybe $120. Okay? That's what I would think about it. Now, to make sure, we're going to go and put this in we're going to put it in and solve it using substitution or elimination. Now, because they're both y equals, I'm going to use the substitution. So I'm going to circle one of them, and I'm going to plug it in to what it equals into the other equation. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go 60 plus 20x equals the 15 plus 35x. And then I want to solve it. So remember our steps. We want to get x by itself. And I always like to move the smaller one because I rather not deal with negatives. So I'm going to move the 20x. It's smaller, it's positive, so I'm going to subtract, sorry. And I get 60 equals 15 plus 15x minus the 15. So now we're back to a two-step problem. Add, subtract. Equals 15x. And then divide. And I can see that 3 is equal to x. And now to find the y, I'm going to plug it into one of those equations. And I'm thinking that the 60 plus 20x is going to be a little bit easier. So I'm going to go y equals 60 plus 20 times 3. And I'm going to go 60 plus 20 times 3 is 60. And y is going to be 120. So at 3 classes, both memberships are going to be the equal amount. And the last one, explain what cooking membership is less expensive in terms of cooking classes. Well, we talked about that. So if you're only going to do 2 or 3 classes, 2 classes or less, I would actually do the professional because it's cheaper. But, and it's the purple down here, it's cheaper until you get to 3 classes. And then if you take more classes with the professional, remember that's the professional, it's going to be more expensive. But if you're going to be taking a lot of classes and you want to learn to cook, I would do the finest. So if you're going to do more than 3 classes, I would take finest because in the long run, it is going to be cheaper. So at 4, it's $140, but it's $155 here. Or if you looked at it, at 6, finest is only going to be $180 and professional is going to be over $200. So save your money when you can. You guys always know that with me. All right, practice this and see if you can solve on your own. Okay, let's see. And